Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Comedy this hour that will make Jimmy in Boston just tickled pink. Marie Wilson and My Friend Irma, an episode going back to January 24th, 1949. Are the Rhinelanders broke? We don't think so. But Mrs. Rhinelander is depressed. We thank you for tuning in on this Tuesday, 24th day of January, 341 days remaining till we get to 2024. Mississippi College, founded on this date in 1826, becoming the first college in the state of Mississippi. In 1848, James W. Marshall found gold at Sutter's Mill near Sacramento. 1908, Robert Baden-Powell began the Boy Scout movement. 1927, director Alfred Hitchcock released his first film, The Pleasure Garden, in England. 1943, President Roosevelt and Winston Churchill concluded their conference in Casablanca. In 1972, Japanese Sergeant Sojiki Koyoi is found hiding in a jungle in Guam, where he'd been in hiding since 1944 when U.S. forces liberated the island during World War II. The first Apple Macintosh went on sale on this date in 1984, and it was on this date in 1986. Voyager 2 passed within 50,000 miles of the planet Uranus.
It is very likely that there will be not be another mission to Uranus for a couple centuries. And so this is it. This will be in the history books. This will be in the encyclopedias for the next couple hundred years.
A NASA spokesman talking about the passing of Voyager 2 going past Uranus. I know we all call it Uranus, but, 1989, mass murderer Ted Bundy executed in an electric chair at Rayford Prison in Stark, Florida.
Well-meaning, decent people will condemn behavior of a Ted Bundy while they're walking past a magazine rack full of the very kinds of things that send young kids down the road to be Ted Bundys. That's the irony.
Bundy received 2 death sentences for 3 murders in Florida. The exact number thought to be more than 30. Pope John Paul II visited Cuba on this date in 1998.
The Pope and Fidel Castro now on the platform as the Pope greets the crowd, waving with his right hand, the crowd in turn waving Cuban and Vatican flags.
Reporter Jim Hickey on this date back in 1998. In 2003, the Department of Homeland Security officially began operation.
The law creating the United States Department of Homeland Security comes into effect. And now this department has its first secretary, Thomas Joseph Ridge.
And it was on this date in 2006, Disney agreed to purchase Pixar in an all-cash deal, making Steve Jobs the largest shareholder in Disney.
Making great content is the most important thing we can do as a company, and making great feature animation is incredibly important. If you look at the history of the company, during the periods of time that we have been at the top of our game in feature animation, the company has really flourished.
Pixar being acquired by Disney on this date in 2006. Jared Lee Lochner pled not guilty in Phoenix on this date in 2011 to federal charges. He'd tried to kill Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and 2 of her aides in a Tucson shooting rampage that claimed 6 lives. And in 2018, former Dr. Larry Nassar sentenced to 175 years in prison after being found guilty of using his position to sexually abuse female gymnasts. Passing away on this date in history, Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the Bolshevik Party. Also Winston Churchill passing away, although it was a number of years later. J. Carrol Naish, Larry Fine of the Three Stooges, film director George Cukor, the founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, actor singer Gordon MacRae, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and actor Pernell Roberts. Born on this date in history, Ernest Borgnine, evangelist Oral Roberts, musician Warren Zevon, actor John Belushi, and wrestler Mike Awesome. Turning 87 years old today, the Cajun fiddler Doug Kershaw. Ray Stevens, still producing great comedy at the age of 84. Neil Diamond is 82 today, as is Aaron Neville. Turning 72, the Russian comedian Yakov Smirnoff, who said, "I like parades without missiles in them. I'll take Bullwinkle to a tank any day." In every country, they make fun of a city. In U.S., you make fun of Cleveland. In Russia, we make fun of Cleveland. Oh, and why don't they have baseball in Soviet Union? In Soviet Union, no one is safe. A delightful man, Yakov Smirnoff, 72. I've got a Yakov Smirnoff story, but I just don't have time to do it here on this program. Let's see, turning 62 today is Nastasia Kinski. Oh, did I say that Yakov Smirnoff was 72? Yeah. Nastasia Kinski, 62, Mary Lou Retton, 55. From The Last Man on Earth TV show, Kristen Shaw, very funny lady, 45. From The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Tatiana Ali is 44. And from the OC, Misha Barton is 37. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 24th day of January as their birthday. If this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
If I can keep this short, I will, because I have a moment to tell the story about Yakov Smirnoff, and I never met him in this situation, but I find it an interesting story that talks about how people can be sometimes. Back in 1995, I was doing a morning show nationwide on the People's Radio Network. And the funny part about this particular story is I got to interview somebody who I'd adored for years, Pat Paulson, who was a perennial presidential candidate. So we had him on because he was a presidential candidate. And this, I think, was before his cancer diagnosis. But he was performing in Sarasota, Florida. And I had an opportunity, and he said, "I got to take me off the air because I want to tell you this story." He says, "I think we have a Russian spy here, Yakov Smirnoff." And we just went along with the gag, and it was funny as anything. But they got tons of phone calls on our interview because the people said, "Yakov Smirnoff is not a Russian spy. He's a nice man. He would never do that." And Pat Paulson had to come back on and apologize. And he said, "I never thought people would take this gag seriously." It just shows how people can get sometimes. Okay, My Friend Irma is up next, January 24th, 1949 here on this Tuesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Happy birthday, Yakov Smirnoff, here on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Jimmy in Boston, a huge fan of Classic Radio Theater, and especially a big fan of Marie Wilson. So here's an episode of My Friend Irma just for Jimmy, January 24th, 1949.
For the safety of your smile, use Pepsodent twice a day. See your dentist twice a year. Lever Brothers Company presents the Pepsodent show, My Friend Irma, created by Cy Howard and starring Marie Wilson as Irma with Joan Banks as Jane.
Friendship, friendship, just a perfect friendship. When other friendships have been forgot, theirs will still be hot. My friend Irma.
You know, they say the eyes are the mirrors of the mind. That's why a good poker player can be holding a royal flush, yet when you look in his eyes, you'd think there was nothing in his hand. I live with Irma Peterson, and although she's not a poker player, when you look into her eyes, you know there's nothing in her head. Now, don't get me wrong, I love her. She's the sweetest and most wonderful person I know. It's just that sometimes she does things that... Well, like the other morning when I sent her out to buy oranges, I said, Irma, are you sure these oranges aren't frostbitten? And Irma said,
Of course not, Jane. There's no teeth marks on them.
You see what I mean? Oh, well, right now I'm perfectly relaxed and I'm reading the newspaper. Irma.
Yes, Jane?
Listen to this. Boy of 10 saves his 4-year-old sister from burning building. Oh, I think that boy deserves a medal.
And I think his sister deserves a spanking. Imagine a 4-year-old girl going around burning buildings.
No, sweetie, she had nothing to do with starting the fire. And believe me, that little boy deserves credit for risking his life. If more of us would think of others and try to help our fellow man, this would be a better world.
Well, I'd like to agree with you, Jane, but it just doesn't always work.
What do you mean?
Well, the other morning, I helped an old lady across the street, but she got mad at me.
Got mad? Why?
She didn't want to cross the street. She was waiting for a streetcar.
Come in.
It's only me, Professor Kropansky. Hello, Janie and Irma, my 2 little cupcakes. One topped with nuts, the other with nuts in her top. Excuse me, girls, a little joke I picked up from a baker.
Why, Professor?
Say, how did you like that wonderful snow we had last night, Professor? Jane and I got a thrill watching it cover the trees.
To me, it wasn't such a thrill. I had to watch it cover my bed.
It's a shame that Mrs. O'Reilly hasn't done something about your room. Can't you do anything to convince her?
I tried that, Jenny. Last night I made a snowman in my room. So she raised my rent because I took in a boarder.
Maybe if you did a kind deed for Mrs. O'Reilly once in a while, things would be different.
This I have also tried. You remember when I invited her that time to the gypsy tea room for dinner?
Oh, yes, I remember, but she couldn't go then because she was sick. Why didn't you invite her again?
What sense in asking her now? We are all out of arsenic.
Hello? Oh, yes, Richard. What? Yes, indeed. Oh, yes, Richard. Of course. Yes, Richard. Goodbye.
Oh, Jane, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations.
Congratulations on what?
Well, didn't Richard just propose to you?
Of course not.
Well, then you certainly wasted an awful lot of yeses.
No, honey, he didn't propose, but I'm closer to it than I ever was because guess what? His mother has invited me to an informal dinner at their Long Island estate tonight.
Oh, Jane, that's wonderful.
Of course, we've all met Mrs. Rhinelander. I just love their home. Imagine, 20 rooms, 6 baths, and a private elevator.
I got 20 holes in the wall, 6 cracks. I haven't got an elevator, but when the wind blows, my whole room goes up and down.
What are you going to wear, Jane?
Wear? Well, naturally, I'll wear my... Oh, my goodness, my black strapless is at the cleaners. And I also have to do my hair. What'll I do?
Well, why don't you go down and get your dress from the cleaners while I stay here and do your hair?
I know what you mean, sweetie. You'll get my dress and I'll do my hair.
Wait for me, Irma. I want to take a pair of trousers to get pressed.
Well, couldn't I take them for you?
Well, you could, but I might catch cold before you get back. Goodbye, Janie, darling, and the best of luck tonight.
Well, Stacy, let's see how your hair looks now. It's not bad. Who is it?
Richard.
Richard? But I'm not ready. You're so early.
I know, Jane, but I have to talk to you.
Oh.
I didn't want to barge in on you like this, but something's happened that changes our plans for this evening.
Oh. You mean dinner at your house is called off?
Yes, but I'm taking both you and my mother out to dinner. And, Jane, I'd like to have you do what you can to snap Mother out of it. She's feeling pretty low.
Oh, isn't she feeling well?
Oh, it's not her health. Well, her cook and the butler walked out on her, and, well, you know, Mother, that's a tragedy to Mother. She's really desperate.
Oh, I know how she must feel. Well, look, why don't you bring your mother by here for cocktails before dinner? Maybe I can help you cheer her up.
That's a splendid idea, Jane. She's always had fun with you and Irma. We'll be by at 7. See ya.
Bye, Richard. Hello. Oh, it's you. What do you want, Al? No, Irma will be right back. What? You've got 3 ice cream cones? Well, certainly you can bring them up here. Why do you ask? Oh, you want to know if we have the ice cream. Look, Diamond Jim Brady, save your money. Goodbye.
Well, Jane, here's your dress.
Oh, thanks, honey. Did you have any trouble finding the place?
No, but I wouldn't go there again. That man is a fraud.
A fraud?
Yes, the sign says French cleaning, but he can speak English just as good as we can.
Oh, please, Irma, I've got other things on my mind.
Oh, gosh, Jane, you seem so worried. Is there anything wrong?
Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I was thinking about poor Mrs. Rhinelander. She's just lost her servants, and she's desperate.
Oh, that's terrible.
The dinner had to be called off, naturally.
Oh, that's too bad.
So I've invited Richard and Mrs. Rhinelander here for cocktails, and we'll go out to dinner later. I'm going to do what I can to cheer her up and make her forget her troubles. Come in.
Hello, Jane. Hiya, chicken.
Hello, Al, honey.
Girls, take a last look at the old Al. The next time you see me, I'll be a millionaire. Yes, sir. AL will stand for always loaded.
And to me, AL will always stand for avoid labor.
Ah, no, Jane, not when you hear about my new deal.
Oh, no. What is it this time? Pumping up waffles and selling them for mattresses?
No, Jane, that wouldn't work. Too many people like to eat in bed. No, this deal is... How do you like that dame? Walks out when I'm ready to let her in on a real deal.
Well, you must excuse her today, Al. She just had a terrible, terrible shock.
What happened?
It's the Rhinelanders. She says they're desperate and their servants left.
You mean they went broke?
Well, they must be, because Jane told me she's having them over here for drinks.
Chicken, give this to me slow. Are you trying to tell me that the Rhinelanders have lost all their dough?
No, I'm not a stupid person. I know what Jane told me. They're desperate.
Seems hard to believe. And yet could be. Lots of people's fortunes change overnight. Take me. 1 minute I'm broke. Next minute I'm in the unemployment line and everything is all right.
Well, of course, Al, but the rich can't live without money. Why, even when they die, they want it near them.
Oh, what makes you say that?
I always read in the papers about some rich man being buried in a vault.
Chicken, that's a different kind of a vault.
It makes no difference, Al. The Rhinelanders are friends of Jane's, and we've got to help them exist. Just imagine they have 20 rooms and 6 baths. The least we can do is give them a sandwich and some soap.
Wait a minute, Chicken. I'm thinking. desperate situation, need help. And in a case like this, there's only one man to call.
Who, Al?
Who else but... Hello, Joe. Got a problem. Some friends of mine have gone on the rocks. What can I do about it? What's that, Joe? You don't know anybody at Alcatraz? No, Joe, don't mean that kind of a rock. No, these people are desperate and need help. What is my move? Thank you, Joe, and goodbye, noble friend.
Oh, what did Joe suggest, Al?
We go to some charity organization and report the Rhinelanders need help immediately as they are starving.
Oh, but Jay may not like that.
We're doing what we think is best. And besides, we don't give our right names. Come on, chicken, know just the place. The Bowery Helping Hand Society.
Well, do they know you, Al?
Know me? They've been supporting my family for years. Let's go.
Oh, gosh, Al, if anybody were to tell the Rhinelanders that their first food basket was given to them through our efforts, they wouldn't be able to eat. They'd be so choked up.
I suspect somebody might have been choked out. January 24th, 1949, My Friend Irma here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now we'll have the news from 74 years ago today and the conclusion of My Friend Irma. Classic Radio Theater continues following these important messages. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. An episode of My Friend Irma starring Marie Wilson, as it was originally broadcast on Monday, January 24th, 1949. In the newspapers of that Monday 74 years ago, these were some of the headlines. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers announced 25,000 engineers would strike against 15 Western railroads a week from Monday. The dispute involves the Brotherhood's demands for a second engineer on diesel locomotives. J.P. Shields, first assistant grand chief engineer of the Brotherhood, said the strike is set for 6 a.m. January 31st in all time zones. President Syngman Rhee of the Korean Republic was given a 21-gun salute Monday as he boarded the U.S. cruiser Astoria on a goodwill trip in Incheon. Rhee was accompanied by a party of 50 Koreans who lunched with Rear Admiral J.P. Womble and Captain L.N. Millers of the Astoria. The cruiser and 2 destroyers are on a 2-day visit. A jury of 6 men and 6 women chosen Monday to try Axis Sally for treason. 6 of the jurors are Negroes. In addition to the 12 regular jurors, 2 alternates, 1 a man, 1 a woman, also chosen. The alternates will hear the evidence but will vote only in the event 1 or more of the regular jurors becomes incapacitated. The treason charges against Miss Gillers, a native of Portland, Maine, grew out of the German wartime propaganda broadcast known to GIs as the Axis Sally program. She also is referred to in the 10-count indictment as Mildred Elizabeth Sisk. Well, now that she doesn't have to go on any campaign trips, Margaret Truman taking up her singing career again. The White House announcing Sunday night that the president's daughter has signed with James V. Davidson of New York as her manager in concert and allied fields for the 1949-1950 season. Margaret Truman had an active musical career, including a cross-country concert tour in 1947. The critics were not overly enthusiastic, but the crowds liked her, as they did on her journeys with the president in the 1948 presidential campaign. President Truman renewed his call on Congress to repeal the 1948 Republican-sponsored Tariff Act and revive the old reciprocal trade law without hampering restrictions. At the same time, the Senate got busy on a drive to kill the filibuster, the weapon Southern senators have relied upon to talk to death Mr. Truman's civil rights program. The Democrat from Arkansas, Chairman Hayden of the Senate Rules Committee, predicted that a majority of the committee will recommend action to prevent further filibusters. However, even if it passes the committee, 17 Southern senators have served notice they will fight any move to limit debate on the Senate floor, and that may touch off a filibuster against the anti-filibuster proposal. Complete unofficial returns Monday showed the Japanese voters turned to political extremes, right and left, in an impatient demand for economic stability. Prime Minister Shigeru Yoshida's arch-conservative Democratic Liberal Party in Sunday's election gained 263 seats of the Diet's 466 seats, a jump of more than 100. This gave the Prime Minister's party a parliamentary working majority, the first since Japan's surrender. Well, in Kansas City, firemen carried Mrs. Margaret Breen and her wheelchair from her burning apartment. Then they went back in and rescued the 65-year-old woman's girdle from a trunk at her urgent request. Seems she had $2,200 sewn into the lining. And George Edward Croxford got a 1-month jail sentence and the judicial admonition that your behavior was not British Monday because he bit Arthur McCartney's nose during an argument in London over payments on a horse and cart. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Monday, January 24th, 1949. On your radio, my friend Irma, and we'll hear the conclusion when Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues on your favorite radio station. On Wednesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, radio's outstanding theater of thrill, suspense, and want ad starring Robert Cummings. A story based on fact about a small-time crook who answers want ads offering merchandise for sale and then robs the advertiser. That's coming up on Wednesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But now, the conclusion of My Friend Irma starring Marie Wilson, 74 years ago today, January 24th, 1949.
My shopping. I have the olives for the martinis, crackers for the hors d'oeuvres, and cocktail napkins in case Mrs. Rhinelander wants to dry her tears. Gee, how anyone with all her money can get so panicky just because a couple of servants quit is really beyond me. Me, I'm different. If I had all that dough, nothing would bother me. Then, of course, I'd probably spend it like wildfire. I'd be the type to go to the first person I'd meet and say, "Here, friend, here's $100.
You're nuts, lady. That's a streetcar transfer.
I beg your pardon. After that, I decided to stop my daydreaming and get right home.
Now you say the name of the needy family is Rhinelander?
That's right. They're desperate.
Of course, it was a great shock to us. We always thought they was loaded.
Well, some people try to live beyond their means. Now, as far as you know, Miss Peterson, are there any delinquents in the family?
Delinquents?
Yes.
Mister, we don't know too much about the family. We are just two angels of mercy.
Very well, we'll investigate. Shall we mention your names as their sponsors?
No, it might embarrass them. Just use any two names, like Frankie and Johnny.
Very well, Frankie and Johnny. We'll get right on the case. Good day, sir.
Good day. Well, Chicken, we got all the organizations working for us. Now, Joe gave me the name of a guy who's a pushover for charity, and that's where you come in.
What do you mean, Al?
Well, we get him on the phone, and you give him a sob story.
Well, what should I say, Al?
Well, you just tell him it would make you happy if he can see fit to throw some charity in the shape of a donation to a family who are at the breaking point. Got that straight, Chicken?
Oh, certainly, Al.
Before we get him on the line, would you mind running over it once? For goodwill.
All right, Al, let's see. It would make me happy to see you throw a fit, and my shape will be a donation for charity.
No! No, Chicken, we better forget it. I think the Rhinelanders have enough to remember us by as it is. Right, Frankie?
Anything you say, Johnny.
Hello?
Hello, Jane.
Well, Richard, what's the matter?
I don't know. I mean, it's just incredible. Can we come over a half hour earlier? I've just got to get Mother out of the house.
Well, certainly, but Richard, what's happened?
Every charity institution in town is calling us up. They want to help us.
Help you? Oh, Richard, it must be a mistake. Do they know who's responsible for this?
They all say the same thing. Frankie and Johnny. If the phone would only stop ringing.
Oh, that's terrible.
Terrible? That's nothing. They want to know if my mother will take in laundry.
Oh, Richard, it's fantastic. Well, come over right away. Goodbye.
Hello, Jane.
Oh, Irma, you just missed the funniest thing.
What?
Well, someone recommended the Rhinelanders for charity. Isn't that a laugh?
A laugh?
Oh, yeah. A laugh.
Oh, yes.
And they were sponsored by two idiots named Frankie and Johnny. Well, isn't that preposterous?
Yes, it certainly is. Isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, it certainly is.
Well, I'm going down to the corner. The Rhinelanders will be here any minute, and I've got more shopping to do. I'll see you later.
Chicken? You think maybe we made a mistake?
Oh, Al, can't you see? She's just acting. It's her pride. You see, Richard has nothing now.
Don't get you, chicken.
Well, she always told me that I was running around with a bum. And now she's in the same boat, and she doesn't like it.
Oh, I get it. She's covering up. And the Rhinelanders are trying to do the same thing.
Of course, Al.
You know, chicken, you're pretty clever.
Oh, not really, Al.
Yes, you are.
Well, now that you mention it, I was thinking of giving my brain to science, but I understand it's a very delicate operation.
Well, I'm proud of you, chicken. And since we know the Rhinelanders are turning down these charities because of their pride, got to work direct.
What do you mean, Al?
We go out to our friends, collect a basket of stuff, and when the Rhinelanders get here, we surprise them. Let's go, chicken. We gotta work fast.
All right, Al.
We'll try Mrs. O'Reilly first.
Come in. Hello, Irma, darling. Hello, Al.
Oh, Mrs. O'Reilly, a family is in distress. Have you any food or old clothing you'd care to give?
Well, no food, but I might have some clothing. I'll look in me trunk.
Come in.
Hello. Look, in Mrs. O'Reilly's room is Al and Irma. Tell me what's going on here.
We're collecting things for a needy family, Professor. And I think I have something in me trunk. Oh, yes. Here's a pair of riding breeches. I wore them one evening when I went moonlight riding on horseback with one of me beaux.
And he had to leave you suddenly because the British were coming.
Oh, be still. Irma, here's a bathrobe I wore when I was a girl. Oh, in those days, my figure was the talk of little old New York.
A little old New York has certainly grown up. But don't feel too badly, Mrs. O'Reilly. Your figure has kept pace with it. Including the suburbs. Canarsie ain't too bad, but what a yonkers you've got.
That's enough out of you. What are you going to give Al and Irma for this needy family, Professor?
Well, Irma, darling, let me see. I could give them my old overcoat, but then what would I use for a door? I could give them my old derby hat, but then what would I use to cook in? I could give them a pair of old shoes, but then I wouldn't have any decorations on the mantelpiece. Here, they can always use money, so give them my last 50 cents.
Oh, thank you, Professor. You're so sweet, but, don't you think you'll need the money?
No, I was saving it to see that new picture, the snake pit. But I'll just sit here and hiss at Mrs. O'Reilly. Come on, chicken. Got a lot more stops to make.
Can I pour you another cocktail, Mrs. Rhinelander? You've had such a harrowing day.
Oh, thank you, Jane. You know, it was so perplexing trying to figure out who this Frankie and Johnny could be. And then on top of that, I was having tea with Mrs. Van Clyde when some man walked in, said he could get me a job in the restroom at the Pennsylvania station.
Well, Mother, try to forget about it. I'm sure it's no one we know.
Hello, everybody.
Hiya, folks.
Oh, and Al. I haven't seen either of you in ages. You both look wonderful.
Thank you, Mrs. Rhinelander. And considering everything, you and your son Richard look almost normal.
Irma.
Oh, what I mean is...
Don't explain, dear. I'm sure you mean well.
Sure she does, Mrs. Rhinelander, and I would like to add my opinion. It does my heart good to see your laughing face, despite the scars and bruises of your collision with disaster.
I beg your pardon?
Relax, Mrs. Rhinelander. You are among friends. Chicken, bring in the basket.
Basket?
Yes. Here you are, Mrs. Rhinelander. The basket is for you.
What?
Yes, and I hope everything fits.
Irma Peterson!
Wait a minute.
Go ahead. Don't be proud.
Yes, and here's 50 cents cash.
Oh, no. Irma, you're not... Frankie and Johnny.
Yeah, that's us. Don't think nothing of it.
Mrs. Rhinelander, I don't...
Maybe I'd best get Mother home. She's hysterical.
Oh, no, Richard, you can't. I mean, Irma.
Gosh, Jane, I'm sorry.
Sorry? You're always sorry. You were sorry the time you put Vaseline in my bathrobe because I said I wanted to slip into it. Sure, you're sorry. You were sorry when you put lighted firecrackers under my hat because I said I felt like blowing my top. Always sorry. Sorry when you put starch in my Pepsodent because I wanted to keep a stiff upper lip.
Oh, please, Jane, dear, don't be angry with Irma. This is the first good laugh I've had in weeks.
You mean you're not angry?
Oh, of course not. On the contrary, I'm pleased and flattered to think that Irma and Al would go out of their way to help me when they thought I was in trouble. Sit down, Irma, dear.
All right, Mrs. Rhinelander.
And you too, Al.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Now, I would like to propose a toast. This is to you, Richard. You may travel the highway of life from Iceland to Malay or Burma, but never will you find a pair as loyal as Al and Irma.
Well, that's very clever, Mother.
And now may I add another toast? This is to myself. You may travel the wide world over and interview each boy and each gal, but never will you find a pair who can louse you up like Irma and Al. Rhinelanders back off relief, and the evening turned out to be quite delightful. But I'm still a little angry at Irma, and I think I should tell her off. Irma.
Yes, Jane?
Don't you think it's about time you showed a little more, intelligence?
Oh, yes, Jane. From now on, I'm not going to do any more of those stupid things. Good night.
Good night. Irma, what are you doing with that pail of water beside your bed?
Well, the other night I dreamed I was a high diver and I fell out of bed. This way I have a place to land.
And you know something? In or out of water, if there's anyone who's all wet, it's my friend Irma.
My Friend Irma is produced and directed by Cy Howard. Park Levy writes the script with Stanley Adams and Roland McLean, and it's brought to you by Pepsodent Toothpaste with Irium, another fine product of Lever Brothers Company. Marie Wilson is starred as Irma with Joan Banks as Jane. The part of Al was played by John Brown. Hans Conried was heard as Professor Kropotkin and Gloria Gordon as Mrs. O'Reilly. Music was under the direction of Bud Glusser. Ladies and gentlemen, help reduce traffic accidents this winter. When you drive, adjust your speed to road and weather conditions and keep your car in top running shape. Pedestrians, too, should be extra careful. Remember, accidents don't always happen to someone else. This is Wendell Niles speaking.
Oh, dear. January 24th, 1949. Marie Wilson, My Friend Irma, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Would you do us a favor? Thank this radio station, support their advertisers. It is their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite radio station. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available on demand by going to classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. Stream the shows, learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links, and you can also, if you want to show a little support and give me a little thank you, you can buy me a coffee. That buy me a coffee money goes toward us acquiring additional classic radio collections, and it also helps us keep our distribution channels up and running. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great Tuesday. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.